Hello class. Today we are going to talk about section 1.4, fractions and decimals. There are two types of decimals that we're going to talk about. Terminating decimals, which is a decimal that stops, and repeating decimals, which is a decimal that repeats a block of one or more numbers. Please take a moment to pause this video and write down the definition of terminating and repeating decimals. Now I'd like you to take a moment to look at the following three decimals. Determine if they are terminating or repeating. Please take a moment to pause the video to do this. 2.34 is a decimal that stops. Since it stops, it is terminating. 3.678 repeats a block of numbers. It repeats the 678. Therefore, it is a repeating decimal. Pi is neither repeating or terminating. It goes on forever and there is no pattern or block of numbers being repeated. Now I'd like to talk about writing terminating and repeating decimals. To write a fraction as a decimal, divide the numerator by the denominator. Please take a moment to pause the video and write down the process for turning a fraction into a decimal. Now let's try turning some fractions into decimals. The first example is 4/5, so we need to see how many times 5 goes into 4. 5 doesn't go into 4 evenly, so we have to add a decimal. When we do this, now we're looking to see how many times 5 goes into 40. 5 goes into 40 8 times. Therefore, 4/5 as a fraction is 0.8 or 8/10. Please take a moment to pause the video and put the first example in your notes and try the second two examples on your own. Now let's see how many times 8 goes into 3. Obviously 8 does not go into 3, so we have to add a decimal. 8 goes into 30 3 times. 8 times 3 is 24. So we subtract 24 from 30 and we get 6. We add another 0 and bring it down. 8 goes into 60 7 times. 8 times 7 is 56. Subtract 56 from 60 and we get 4. Add one more 0 and bring it down. We know 8 goes into 40 5 times. Therefore, 3/8 as a decimal is 375 thousandths. Now we need to see how many times 9 goes into 2. 9 obviously doesn't go into 2, so we add our decimal. 9 goes into 20 2 times. 9 times 2 is 18. Subtract 18 from 20 and we get 2. Add another 0, bring it down. 9 goes into 20 2 times. Again, you can see already that a pattern is starting. 2/9 as a decimal is 0.2 repeating. Now let's talk about writing decimals as fractions. I think the easiest way to do this is going to be to start off with a few examples. -6 and 32/100ths can be written as -6 and 32 over 100. If you notice, 0.32 has two numbers after the decimal. We take that number and put it over 1 followed by 2 zeros. If we follow the same rule, 3.425 would be 3 and 425 over 1,000. 1 followed by 3 zeros. Please take a moment to pause this video, record the first two examples in your notes, and try the next 3 examples on your own. Now that you've taken a moment to try these 3 examples, let's see how you've done. 2 and 15/100ths has two numbers after the decimal, so it's going to be 15 over 1 followed by 2 zeros. -5 and 4/10ths has one number after the decimal, so it's going to be 4 over 1 followed by 1 0. And 12 and 322 thousandths has 3 numbers after the decimal, so it's going to be 322 over 1 followed by 3 zeros. Now that we know how to turn fractions into decimals and decimals into fractions, we can use our new skills to help us order fractions and decimals. The first step into ordering fractions and decimals is to turn all of the numbers either into fractions or decimals to make them easier to compare. Please take a moment to pause this video and write down the process of ordering fractions and decimals. Now let's look at an example together. Let's order 1 25 hundredths, 3/4, 9/8, and 1 42 hundredths from least to greatest. In this case, it is easy to turn all of the numbers into either fractions or decimals. It doesn't matter. Either way is perfectly acceptable. 3/4 is 75 hundredths as a decimal. This is a commonly known decimal fraction conversion. 9/8 is equal to 1 1/8. 1/8 is 125 thousandths as a decimal. Therefore, 9/8 equals 1 and 125 thousandths. So now if you look, we have all of our numbers written as decimals and they're easy to compare. 3/4 is our smallest number, then 9/8, 1 25 hundredths, and our largest number is 1 42 hundredths. If you wanted to turn all of the numbers into fractions, that was also very easy to do. 25 hundredths is a commonly known conversion of 1/4. Therefore, 1 25 hundredths is 1 1/4. 1 42 hundredths can be written as 1 42 over 100 or 1 21 50ths. From that point, it is easy to see which numbers are smaller and larger, and it is, again, easy to order the numbers from the smallest to largest. Please take a moment to pause this video and write down the example in your notes. Before you finish writing your notes, I'd like you to record these 3 problems in your notes as well as your answers. Please come to class prepared to discuss the answers of these 3 questions.